Alright, so this is going to be another Quake engine tutorial. This time we are going to be talking about making maps. And there's going to be a lot of setup here, so I'm going to try to go through it quickly because it can be a little tedious. Now, the first thing that we want to do is get a map editor for Quake, and what we're going to use is called TrenchBroom. This is a phenomenal mapping tool, just unbelievable. You can find a link in the description, or you can just Google TrenchBroom GitHub. Of course, this is a mapper that can be used for more than just Quake, but I think it's fair to say that it's mainly for Quake. Now you're going to go to releases if you've gotten here, and we're going to go to the most recent release, and we should see assets. I want TrenchBroom 164 AMD. This is my system. I don't want the one with MD5, I just want .zip. And you are going to download that and put it in a folder inside of QSS-M. You probably don't have it. I have it here, I think, because I've gone somewhat ahead. Make a tools folder if you don't have it in QSS-M. And here you can see I have added this TrenchBroom folder. Now, once you put it here and unzip it, let's just rename it to TrenchBroom for simplicity. And I'm going to hit cancel because I already have it downloaded. And what we're going to do then is go into this tools folder, and you can see I've created a shortcut here, which you can do if you'd like. Go into TrenchBroom, you should find TrenchBroom exe. I'm going to just double click it for now. That's what you should do as well. And let's see here. So by default you should have nothing. Let's go ahead and hit new map, and we're going to scroll down to Quake. And before you do anything else, click Open Preferences and go to Quake here. And you're going to have two options that are going to matter. First one is going to be this game path. Game path you want to set to your QSS-M folder. This is where it's going to look for your ID1 folder and your entities and so on. And then after you've selected that, you want to go to Configure Engines, and you're going to make a new profile here with this plus button. I have one here, you won't. If I just hit plus, the name doesn't really matter. I called mine QSS-M, and the path is going to be to your compiled Quake Spasm engine. Excuse me. If you remember, inside of QSS-M, we have Windows, VisualStudio, and then we kind of drill down a little bit into these build folders, and we should have a debug folder. And this is just where we want to go for now to keep things simple. And you should find your exe file in here, which will be named quakespasm-sdl2.exe if you've been following along. That's where you're going to select. I'm not going to do it because I've already done it here. And those two things are enough. Let me hit minus here, and you should have something that looks exactly like this or very similar. And go ahead and hit close. And now that we have these two things set up, hit apply, hit OK, and we're going to make sure our map format is on Valve. Standard is probably fine. Let's just use Valve because that's what I've got, and I think that's default. Let's hit OK after we've got Quake selected. Okay, so by virtue of having configured it the way we just did, if you go into this Entity tab up on the right, you should see your LibreQuake entities. Right. So these are going to be things like enemies, weapons. Ooh, excuse me again. Sorry about that. So lights and so on. So we're going to add some of those quickly, briefly. Let's start with Actually, let's not add any right now. What we want to do is shape the level a little bit. Just really quickly, the way that you're going to move around in here, in this 3D editor, first right click and drag, and you'll notice you kind of change the camera angle, which is helpful. Then also notice you have W, A, S, and D, which are going to kind of move you, zoom in and out, and move left and right, respectively. And then notice you also have Q and X to go up and down. If you have these WASD and QX combined with right click and drag, this gets you pretty far in terms of just moving the camera where you want to. Of course, there are more advanced controls, but just know that for now. And we're almost ready, but we're not quite there because this surface here, in TrenchBroom, this is called a brush rather. A brush is kind of a name for a 3D mesh or 3D object. Maybe I'm misusing it slightly, but in general, if you refer to this as a brush, that will be appropriate. This brush doesn't have any texture. We want to put some texture on it, and by texture I don't mean like roughness, I mean like an image that is going to look like a brick wall or something that we actually want to have in our game. And so ordinarily that would be in the face tab over here. Right now we don't have it. Let's talk about how to add it. If you notice, go back to QSS-M, and you may have, actually don't, go to GitHub, go to LibreQuake. You should have a folder in here called texture-wads. And these are the texture files used to create LibreQuake. Just go ahead and open up any of them. You'll notice there's a bunch of PNG files in here, a bunch of images, which is great. But two problems. One, we don't have them in our folder. Excuse me again. Go ahead and hit copy this texture WADS file. Go back to QSS-M. Inside of ID1, we're going to paste this and rename it to textures. You can see I've already done that, so I'm going to stop. Let me just prove to you. I'm going to delete the one I just copied. You should keep it. Textures, you can see it's the same thing we just looked at. Folders with a bunch of PNG files. So you want to rename it to textures instead of texture WADS. This is just my preference. I think that's a little easier. I think you'll find it that way too. Once it's in here, you might think, okay, we're ready. But in fact, we're not, because TrenchBroom cannot load these PNGs. It wants to load what are called Wad files, which are kind of packed together groups of PNGs. And so a little hint here, you'll see that we have these files given to us by the LibreQuake devs for compiling WADs from these PNGs. Let me just open one of them quickly. This is compile wads.py. You don't have to know Python, but just let me give you an overview of what's going on here. We have a list here of all the folder names, and this program is going to essentially loop over them, pull out all the PNG files, and it's going to use a program called QPacman to compile them into a WAD file. And you can see here it's just running that command with the options that have been selected. So we want to do something like this. I'm not going to make you install Python. You can see here there's a compile wads.sh that similarly you could use with bash if you have it. I'm going to assume that you don't have it readily accessible on Windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a version called compile wads.ps1. PS1 is a PowerShell script, which universally you'll have if you're using Windows. If you're using another platform, then you'll have to use compile wads.sh should just work for you. Or if you have Python 3, compile wads should work for you. You're going to have to find your own way. But if you're on Windows, let's do this. You won't have this by default because I added it. In the video description, there will be a link to this file. Let's see here. It will be this one. We're going to need QPacman as well, but let's do this first. We'll follow this link and go to our browser. Here I've got it already. This is a gist I created. So hopefully that, forgive me, hopefully that can help assuage your fears that it's not going to do anything harmful. It's going to be doing something almost identical to what that Python file was doing. We have this reference to our QPacman program, and it's going to be just looking at all the directories in that texture folder and compiling them into Wad files. So what you can do is go ahead and download this zip. This is going to give you this kind of big zip file. If you're familiar with zipping and downloading and unzipping zip files, you should be fine. I'd put it in your textures folder here in ID1 /textures, and you'll have to unzip it. Obviously, I won't kind of walk through that just to save your time. I think you can handle that. But end up with compile wads.ps1, this file basically just in this location. And now we need our QPacman. There's going to be another link here in the description to QPacman, quake.by/files, ID equals 27. And here's what that looks like. This is just that that program that will do the compilation of those PNGs into WAD, or packing rather. I just did download from the server. And let's see, this takes a while for me. Maybe it doesn't for you, but it should also give you a qpacman.zip. The place you're going to want to put that is inside of QSS-M. Go to Tools, and you're going to put it here. You can see I've already unzipped it, and I believe I actually removed a level of nesting. So I think originally it had QPacman/QPacman and then all these. But what I'm going to suggest is you just take QPacman exe and put it immediately inside of the QPacman folder. I think that should make sense to you. So once this is here, we can go back to QSS-M ID1 textures, and we should be able to right-click this compile wads.ps1 and click run with PowerShell. And you can see it is going to be looping over each of these, looping over our folders, and for each of them making a WAD file. And if I go back, you're going to see that it has created a WADs folder, and it just has a .wad for every one of those folders. And this is exactly what we want. If that didn't work for you, it's possible. What's probably happening is that the folders aren't set up exactly how mine are set up. Again, you want ID1 textures. Instead of textures should be PS1. Make sure that inside of tools, it just looks exactly like this. And if you have that, it should work. Now, once you've done that, let's go back to TrenchBroom, and we're going to go into this entity tab again. You should see a field up here called WAD. Click on WAD. You should see WAD files right here. If you're on a relatively similar version of TrenchBroom, click plus, and you're going to navigate to wherever your WAD files are. It should be QSS-M ID1 textures WADs, and we're going to just select one. You can get as many as you want. For simplicity, I'm going to choose LQ Metal. I think that's a pretty good one for what we're doing. It's going to ask you to choose the path type. What I'm going to suggest, let's see, ordinarily I'd suggest relative to map file, but the reason we don't have that is because we haven't saved. Hit cancel, Control S if you haven't saved. Let's save our map file in QSS-M ID1 maps. You're going to have source. Open the source, and what I want you to do is actually delete everything inside of the source folder that was there from LibreQuake. Maybe that's a little daunting, but we're going to make our own maps and not use the ones that they made. I'm going to just call it E1 for episode 1, hit save. And now we're going to go back to Wad Files plus. Let's reselect LQ Metal, and we should now have relative to map file. Absolute, you can see it uses the full qualified file path, like straight from, like all the way from my hard drive level. You could do this. This one, I think one of these relative ones is going to be more flexible if you're collaborating with other people. Just a little less breakage resistant if you have this project kind of moving around together. So this is what I'm going to suggest, relative to map file. Hit OK. By the way, what this means is it's saying back out of source, back out of maps, into textures. It's basically telling it go up 2 levels and go into the textures folder and go to this WAD, which is fine. So now that we've done that, we should see in the face tab up here, we have all our textures. So this is amazing. This is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and select one. I don't have to be too picky about it because I'm just, showing you how to do it. But let's just select this brush, and then we'll click on this texture, and we should see it apply, which is great. Now let's do some kind of basic reshaping of our brush. Let's go ahead and make this really long. I'm going to hit Shift. Don't hit Shift too much. Just hold Shift, hover over this face, and you should be able to drag it out. Let's just make a long little hallway. Let me zoom out. Okay. Remember your WASD QX and right click and drag. Shift drag. Shift drag is really helpful. Let's go ahead and with this whole brush selected, let's control drag it. Okay. And we'll just drag it out here a little bit. And let's see if I can do what I want here. Control drag is gonna clone it. I want to rotate this. Let's see if I remember this. I think we want Alt arrow key. Try Control Alt arrow key. No, Control arrow key. No. Let's see. I'm fumbling a little bit here. So I'm struggling to rotate it in this green axis. So I'll do my homework about what I'm forgetting here. For the meantime, let's just Shift click on this face, select the whole thing, Shift click here, drag it right there. Let's drag the whole thing, or we can use arrow keys and move it. Right here, we just want to create a wall, and then let's Shift hover over this top face, do something like this, and let's give this one a different texture. Let's give it the, what's a nice texture? I saw a runes texture. This is good. And let me just kind of change the angle here. And let's take this one and let's control click it again, bring it over here. And you can see by default when you're dragging, you're kind of just dragging in the red and green planes horizontally. If you didn't get this lined up, you're not sure, hit space. Space will show you these, it'll kind of toggle between these orthographic, is that the correct term? I think it is, orthographic cameras here. They're basic, you're just looking at it from straight on from one certain axis. This is gonna maybe look a little confusing, but it looks right to me. And let's go ahead and select this bottom face again, just that one, and control click. Or no, let's not do that. I'm gonna undo, control alt click, so that we're actually dragging it in the up and down direction. This should be fine. And I think this is enough now just to kind of get started. What I'd like to do here, let's do just slightly more. Let's drag this out. Actually, that was a little too close. I'm gonna go over here with nothing selected. I'm going to drag out a little brush. Didn't put it exactly where I want. Obviously, the camera's a little funny. Let's see if I can use the arrow keys and move it. You should be able to do the same thing. Obviously, it's a little clunky if you're not familiar with this. I'm not I'm not a TrenchBroom expert, but I think we can kind of get along here. You should be a little slow too. Let's go ahead and move this back here, and we're going to just make another little platform, drag it out, drag it out. Let's go to this view, see what we're working with. I'm going to just go over here and drag it out. Give us a little more space to work with. It doesn't have to be perfect. That should be fine for now. It's okay that there's not walls. What I'm going to do is actually drag this out slightly further. Let's do that. You can do whatever you want. Don't feel like you need to do exactly what I've done. Let's hit save. Let's go back to entity, and we're going to need a couple things here. The first one is we're going to need an entity. It's called info player start. And let me just navigate yourself in here and drag it right here, info player start. Yours might be facing a different direction. What you can do is Alt arrow key, and you'll rotate it. That'll be fine. Just make sure that it's on the platform and not off the edge. I don't think it may not even let you put it off the edge. Let's also come here. Let's give ourselves some fun. We'll put a rocket launcher in this hallway. Great. And let's go ahead and put an enemy out here. What do we want? Something simple. How about a knight? Let's just go ahead and drag your knight out here. And let's drag a couple for kicks. We can Alt arrow key them into the right direction as well if we want. Great. Okay, so let's just go ahead and save this. So we want to play this map. We want to make sure that it works, that our textures are working. Make sure you saved your file. And so once we have this map file, this is just like, it's the file that we use to create the map. It's not the file that our game is going to load. So once again, we're going to go get some more tools. I know tools on tools on tools. We have so many. What we want is what's called ericwtools. You can follow this link in the description. Let's go back here. ericwtools should take you to another GitHub page. You're going to go to the releases tab. If you can't find this on the home page, it should be right here. And let's look at the assets for this 2.0.0 alpha, or you might have a slightly later one, it's fine. I want 164, and of course you're going to put it again in your QSS-M tools folder. You can see I've got it here. Let's go ahead and just rename it to ericwtools. And we're also going to want what's called the compiling GUI, the Necros compiling GUI. The thing is that in this ericwtools, you can see these exe folders. Each of them kind of do something, exe files rather. Each of them is a program that is going to compile part of our map, but we want a tool to kind of orchestrate this so it is a little simpler for us. And so we want what is called the Necros compiling GUI. You'll see what it does shortly. Again, in the description here, we should have a link to the Necros compiling GUI on quadicted.com. Let's see, let's just make sure I have the whole thing. And if I go to the browser, let me just plug this in. This is going to be it's not going to be a page you visit. When you enter the URL and go hit enter, it's just going to automatically try to download it, put it in your tools directory, unzip it, just like you've been doing, and you should have this. And I'm not going to rename it for now. Just make sure that it looks like this. And I'm going to go ahead and double click it. And we've got some configuration to do. I've already done mine, so these are going to be filled out, but yours won't. Do these checkboxes the way that I have them, and go to this source map field, and you're going to select QSS-M, ID1, maps, source, and you're going to click your map file. it's just asking what is the file what is the map I'm compiling. Quake engine, you're going to navigate to your Quake Spasm SDL2 exe that should be kind of buried here. Same way, you should be used to finding this by now. Just a reminder, if you don't remember, it is in Windows Visual Studio if you've been following along. Command line arguments, this is important. We're going to type -base dir, dir. Dir is short for directory, which is the same thing as a folder. A directory is a folder. And what you can do is go to your File Explorer, go to QSS-M folder, just right-click, copy address, and paste this in here. It won't be exactly like mine, obviously, but it should be the absolute path to your QSS-M folder. So just make sure it looks like this, -base dir. And a couple more options here. Hit pause after compiling, hit run Quake, and go into settings, folder setup, tools folder. This is going to be the file path to your ericwtools. So let's just go QSS-M, tools, and ericwtools, and that you should hit OK there. You can see it's looking for some of these exe folder files that we saw in there earlier, and you could configure them with additional arguments if you want to modify the way that they're working, but you don't have to do that for now. Working folder, click these three dots, go into your QSS-M ID1 maps source. It's just going to be the folder where your map folders are located. This is going to kind of create some extra like files and build artifacts that are a result of working with your building your map. And you want to select your ID1 maps folder for your output. Just make sure it's not source. SRC just means like these are the files that are the input of the compilation, and this is going to be the output. We're just going to make it go in ID1 maps. And that looks great. So let's hit done. You should, by the way, have .pts here. This should be unchecked. Hit done. And this is great. Now, if you've done everything right, let's hit, make sure this light is unchecked. I'll talk about what this is. So by default, in a lot of cases, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but if you have a map and it meets certain regular criteria, it will kind of just be in total darkness if you didn't put any light entities on your map. Leave this unchecked. Basically, there are ways that you can just make your, I believe that if we don't check this, we will just have our map have a general ambient lighting, and we don't have to put any lights in it, which is fine for now. Let's just hit File, Compile, or Control-C, and we have a little error here. You can kind of scroll back and see all the little logs that this compilation has done. There's some little warnings and errors here. I think most of them are going to be not need for concern. Sorry, they're not going to be anything that you need to worry about. Even this error, I think, is fine for now. Don't worry about it. Press any key to continue. I'm going to hit space. Your game should load. You should have your map that you just created loading. Let's get our rocket launcher here, and let's just go shoot these guys. Great. And you can see this is working, and I can jump off my map here. Great. Hit escape. We'll go quit. So that's amazing. This is kind of the bare minimum that you need to be compiling maps, and obviously once we have maps, we can start filling them with our kind of custom weapons and enemies and that kind of thing, and we can start actually making the game look like our own game rather than look like Quake, if that's what we want. Of course, you could just do this for, you could make Quake mods and use the default stuff, but we're going to be continuing down the path of just making this our own standalone game. Now, just briefly, let me say quickly, there are some great resources here in the description. If you want to know more about TrenchBroom, I'd go ahead and check these out. Dump Truck DS is the one that I'm going to mention here. Dump Truck DS is This guy got an amazing YouTube channel and series here about TrenchBroom, just the tools inside. I will warn you, these are slightly old. You can see this is 7 years ago now. So some of the setup is going to be incorrect if you're following this tutorial. I'm going to just say anything related to configuring it or setting folder locations. Probably ignore that and just follow my advice if you're going to continue with this series. But in general, amazing information about TrenchBroom. If you want to deep dive into mapping, go here. You can see his channel has just loads of videos on Quake and just fantastic stuff here. So you can get lost in it. I recommend doing it if you want to. But next time in the videos, we're going to be coming back and looking at progressing further down the path of writing our own custom weapons and enemies and this kind of thing. And of course, you can see if we want to customize our game, we're going to want our own textures and so on to populate our map. But for now, I think this is a good place to call it. A couple things just to be aware of. Go ahead and stop, but if you're having any trouble, go ahead and keep watching and I'll talk about some of the things that might have gone wrong for you. If you're just loading your map and you're seeing white checkerboard here instead of your actual texture that you chose, it's likely that the compiler of this map can't find the texture. In that case, it's going to be really important that when you went to map, or rather entity, click on nothing, just click on your empty space, go to WAD. It's possible that your WAD file here is hooked up, but your compiler GUI, if you go to tools, I guess I closed it, tools, compiler GUI, likely that some of these fields are not correct, or these, any of this stuff. It's pretty delicate because we have a lot of little, a lot of directions about how to navigate to files and exactly where they should be. So just make sure that your files and folders are exactly kind of in the right place relative to each other, and the names are right, and everything like that. And you probably may have some clues if you compile with file compile or Control-C here. You can look back through these messages, and that should give you some kind of indication of what you're doing wrong if you have something wrong. So anyway, that's going to be it, and I'll end this here and see you in the next one.